Hello, hello, hello. This is Jim Gibson. Thank you for joining me today on my channel. Really appreciate it. It was a couple, I don't know, it might have been a couple months ago. I don't know when it was. But I met up with an old friend who's also in business, and we were chit-chatting. And I said, I noticed you've been in business for well over 20 years. I wanted to ask you this question. Do you own that building you're in? And he said, no, no, I'm not in real estate. I'm an IT guy. I don't want to own any buildings. That's silly. I got to do the, maintenance on them and everything else. And if I grow, I need a bigger building. If I shrink, I need a smaller building. I want to right size my business. And if I buy a building, I'm stuck there. And what happens if I have a slow couple months and I can't make payments on that building? And he went on and on and on. And then I just listened, and he said, well, what did you do? I said, I bought my building. I bought my building 20 years ago. And you know what happens now? I don't need that building. It was a warehouse, 6,000 square foot building, beautiful building, brand new building. And I said, I don't need it anymore because I don't do that business anymore. I do online stuff now. And I said, and every month, I get a check deposited into my bank account, and it's been very profitable. Now, before I bought this building, I realized that I needed to buy a building. I had 3 offices, one in San Diego, one in the northern part of San Diego County, and one in the Irvine Spectrum area, and they were about an hour away from each other. So you went down to the city of San Diego, and you had to go to Oceanside. That would take about an hour, and then from Oceanside to Irvine Spectrum area in Orange County was about an hour. So they're nicely spaced apart to deal with all the different things that needed to be dealt with. But I was paying a considerable amount of rent on these 3 facilities, and I remember hearing that my rent was going to go up in 2 of the places, and things were really moving fast at that time. And I think it was around 2005, 2006, maybe in 2007. I don't know, don't remember. But I do remember that looking at these checks that I had to write, and back then I was writing checks to landlords, and I thought to myself, man, this is a lot of money. What can I do to put this money to work? So I started looking at some warehouse space that had offices, and I found one in Oceanside that was just being built. And that's where my house is, 10 minutes from my house. I could possibly even walk to the place. It was so close. And a couple times I did. I walked home for lunch and walked back just to get the exercise. So to make a long story short, I bought that building, and it was a little under $1 million, and I took out a mortgage on it. Now I closed down the Orange County office, and I closed down the San Diego office, and I consolidated all my activities in the Oceanside facility. Beautiful facility, 6,000 square feet, offices of about 2,000 square feet. I designed it the way I wanted it designed. I had I had a full-size dock and a street-level dock, and so when we would take supplies like cables. I mean, we used to buy cables and pallets, and when we would buy these cables and pallets, usually it was nice to have the tractor trailer back up against my dock level dock and drop off those pallets of cables. Very easy to receive things. Also, when you're shipping, the same thing. So it's a beautiful building, and something? It was very expensive. I made one mistake. I could have went with a 20-year mortgage. I went with a 15-year mortgage, which meant that I paid less interest to the bank, but it also meant that my payments were a lot higher. And even though they were about the same as the 3 facilities I had before, there were slow months to where I struggled to make those payments. I would have struggled for the other, the 3 offices before I bought this building. I would have struggled with that. But I thought, 15 years would have been a better deal. So I decided to go with 15-year mortgage rather than a 20-year mortgage, and never missed a payment over the 15 years that we rented it. Now, once I rented it, something happened. And the thing that happened was the recession. So a $1 million property in Southern California went down to about 600,000 in value. And all my friends would say, "Oh, Jim, walk away from it. Just give it back to the bank. You can't afford this. And of course, at the same time, rents were dropping like crazy. And so I just decided, well, if I gave up this building, if I turned it over to the bank, I would lose my deposit, which was, I think we put down 300,000 at the time. I would lose my deposit, and on top of that, I wouldn't have a building. I'd still have to rent. And I didn't think it was fair that if I made an agreement, I didn't say I'm only going to pay my payments only if it's really a good economy. I decided that I would stick it out, and it was tough, but things got better. And we did pay it off, and we paid it off on time. And from there on out, I did not have to pay rent. I did not have to pay mortgage. I owned the building that I was in. Now, the nice thing is that, in a business, that when you pay rent, that is a tax-deductible item. So when I'm paying a total of $8,000 a month in rent for all these 3 different facilities, I am not being taxed. That's pre-tax dollars. And I know that's something we need to discuss in the future, why you should have a business, why you should have an Inc. or an LLC a type of business. It's because of the tax advantages. Why you should have a business, period. It's because of tax advantages. I put gas in my truck, it's pre-tax money. And so whatever's left over, that's what I pay tax on. And I thought to myself, well, why don't I take this money, and when I buy this building, I bought this building. So in other words, I'm paying rent to myself. Now, I set up an LLC for the building. It's separate from my main company at the time, which was an IT company. And so I'm paying myself rent. So I'm paying it from the right hand to the left hand. And it's all tax deductible for the rent. And of course, at the same time, I'm paying a considerably high mortgage payments, which were a good portion of them tax deductible. So I now have not paying any tax, and I'm paying the rent pre-taxed. So if you're getting what I'm talking about here, it became an advantage for both companies, my IT company and my real estate company. And this was the first endeavor for me to get involved in real estate. And so years later, after it was paid off, I decided that I was going to sell my IT business, which I did, sold it to a competitor, and then I rented out my building, my warehouse. Now, the nice thing about renting out the building is that I get all the depreciation in the building. So the building depreciates each year. It really doesn't, but that's a legal term, depreciation of the building, and that means I get that credit. So I think it's 39 years, I'm not sure, 29 years, something like that. Need to look it up. But I know it's depreciated each year. So that means the percentage each year of the supposedly the wearing out of the building. Land is not depreciated, just buildings are depreciated. So the wearing out of the building I get to declare as a tax deduction. So at that rate, I'm not paying any taxes on that income from that building. So it's tax-free income. I bought it tax-free. I live there tax-free in that building. And now I'm collecting rent tax-free because of depreciation. So it's a pretty good deal. And I have insurance on it, so I do have costs. I keep insurance on it. Now, of course, the renter pays for everything else. So they're going to pay for their own electricity. They're going to pay for their own internet. They're going to pay for their heating and their air conditioning and stuff like that. But they also pay for the repairs on the building. So, I got a call the other day and they said, well, we're having some issues with the toilet. And I said, I'm sorry to hear that. Call a plumber. And they said, well, don't you handle that? I said, no, I do not handle it. You're in a commercial building. You handle it, not me. It's your responsibility. The lease clearly says that it's your responsibility to handle things like clogged toilets, air conditioners that don't work, things like that. So to me, it really worked really well to own this building, and it taught me a lot of lessons about real estate. It started me in the real estate investing. Was this one building? It's still a beautiful, looks like a brand new building. It's one of those tilt-ups made out of cement. I mean, even if there was a fire inside, all I'd have to do was replace the roof. And we can go on from there. But it was a pretty good deal. Now, some of the mistakes I made in buying this building. First of all, it was a condo building. So there's one big building and there's other tenants. I own my portion of the building, and they own or rent their portions of the building. So there's maintenance costs. Roofs are covered under the maintenance costs, the sidewalks, the parking facilities, things like that, is all under a payment that I pay every month. It's sort of like a HOA type of setup. If I had to do it again, I would not have done that. I would probably just pick a standalone warehouse that had its own area. But of course, I'd also have to handle the landscaping. I'd have to handle the paint on the outside. Landscaping is pretty extensive on my building because we have a lot of palm trees around there that need to be trimmed, things like that. We also have a parking lot that needs to be maintained. But at the same time, I think I'd rather be in charge of that than pay someone else to do it for me. Exterior lights, yeah, they get expensive. And the association has to pay for those. So to make a long story short, do I look back and regret what I did? Absolutely not. Now I sit here, and as I sit here and talk to you, I get rent payments every month. I just go and I go online and I look at my bank deposits and I can see my rent payments, each rent payment from each facility. And at the end, I go grab my cup of coffee and I sit outside and I enjoy the great weather in California, when it is great, by the way, and most times it is in Southern California. And I sit there and drink my coffee and enjoy life. So if you own a business, why don't you own the building that your business is in? Think about this. And I hear, that guy said, well, I'm not in the real estate business. Well, something that's called diversification. It means that, like with me, I'm no longer in IT. I have a building that sends me money, considerable amount of money each month too. And that's going to be for the rest of my life. I am going to be able to collect those checks. And, in the IT business, you got to train technicians, you got to have trucks, technicians leave and go to competitors. The trucks drive away and you don't know what's happening. Yeah, you get an idea, you got GPS and reporting and all this other stuff. But you got to pay for all that. You got to pay workers' comp. You got to pay, employment tax and all that other stuff. And it gets to the point you got to have a full-time accountant doing all this. I don't do that in real estate. I just look at my bank account every month and see it grow. So why would you not diversify and own the building and pay your self-rent? That rent, again, tax-free. And if you got a mortgage, that mortgage interest rate is tax-free and some other things. Look, I am not a tax expert, okay? I do have a CPA that I see for 1 hour a year, and that's it. And he fills out all the reports. But I made sure that my IT business was completely separate from my real estate business. My real estate business is an LLC, and I own that name. And my company was an incorporation, and it was completely separate from the two. One company paid the other. No one paid taxes. All these tax breaks are unbelievable when you own property. So, again, I'm not a CPA, I am not a financial advisor or anything else. I'm just telling you my experience, and I wonder why other people don't do the same thing I did and actually benefit from real estate purchases and things like that. Go check it out. I don't know what your area is like. Your area might be different than mine. I think my area is crazy sometimes in real estate with state of California, things like that. But commercial real estate, when you're the tenant to your own real estate, is a really good idea. It has really worked well for me. So thank you for watching today. Please check it out. If you own a business, it's very easy to set up another LLC when it comes to real estate. And it's very inexpensive. Once you own the building, you get to still pay rent. You can still pay rent. Your IT company can still pay rent to your real estate company. So go ahead and give it a try, man. It really has paid off well. By the way, that building that I bought 20 years ago for a little under $1 million is now worth $2 million. So it was a good deal. I could sell it today easily. People have offered me. They said, just tell me whatever you want for the building and I'll just sign it. Now, of course, if I came back with $10 million, no. But they said, I have a check. I've had a guy tell me that. I have a check right now. I'll buy this building. And no, I am not interested in selling it right now. And there's a lot of different reasons why, but it does provide monthly income. And I tell you what, the income I get from this real estate is 3 times what I get from Social Security. And I've worked my whole life paying into Social Security. And now I have one building that gives me 3 times what I get in Social Security. In case you haven't noticed, I'm a little bit gray up here. I am at the retirement age and things like that. So I get 3 times as much cash each month from my buildings than I get from Social Security. It's kind of sad. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. Bye.